All right. We got started a little earlier than I realized here. I was able to catch up on the show, and we're an hour earlier. But you know what? Because I'm hearing some background. Give me 1 second. Background audio on the other computer. Hang on 1 second.
Oh, no.
Jeremy can spitball while I'm figuring this out.
While Garrett's taking care of that, I am happy to tell you that I enjoyed this show, and I'm looking forward to talking about it with Garrett. He and I have not discussed anything about the show whatsoever. He and I watched it separately. He had to watch it on delay. So he popped on maybe like 3 minutes ago. We did a little bit of a post-game talk, and what you're getting here is basically a frank and honest discussion between good old Gigi and I about Forbidden Door from one guy who has a New Japan podcast and another guy who talks about all the greater pro wrestling information. And so this is going to be a wild ride, everybody.
Sorry, just a little bit of inside Fight Game Media here. I have two computers, and one of them is mostly a processing machine, and I was fiddling with that, and it went to sleep. But somehow when we went live, I could still hear us going live on the other computer because it was watching the stream. So that's what happened. All right, let's talk about this show. So
Sure.
Forbidden Door, and I will admit, when it came to the hype around the show, when it came to the build, it just seemed like it was something that they had to do rather than that they wanted to do or that they had a reason to do. And I think that affected my interest in the show. You know what also affected my interest, if I'm being honest, is this early start time, because while I get it in some levels, because obviously it's an international show, you know, there is something about watching wrestling at 4 or 5 o'clock on a weekend day. That is you kind of when it's wrestling day, you know, to get your stuff done early, and then you're going to kind of end the night or end the weekend on a nice kind of hangout with the buddies. And I like that. When when the show, this 2 shows in a row, by the way, on the AEW side, where it kind of takes up your entire day, I'm not a giant fan of that. So I can't wait for them to get back to, well, who knows what's going to happen with All Out. We don't know yet, but I don't like the midday stuff, especially on a Sunday. It's like Sunday's so much stuff to do. Like, so that kind of also was a little bit of an issue with me. But I will say, on the flip side, watching the show, even on a delay that I didn't get to watch with you guys at Big Dave's house, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a very enjoyable show.
Right.
I don't know if there was even anything that I super disliked, though I will say I was most disappointed in the Toni Storm and Athena match. And the opening match was a WWE moments over matches kind of thing, right? The Edge and Christian thing. But and I enjoyed that because I like seeing those guys together. I'm trying to think of anything that I disliked on this show. And as far as the matches are concerned, we'll actually get to the biggest news coming out of this show, or the biggest angle coming out of this show, in a second. But was there anything that you watched and you were like, this wasn't great, like I didn't like this?
No, in fact, one of the questions you've asked me before is that should this have been on Dynamite or something like that? And I honestly thought that there was nothing. Like, it all kind of felt like a pay-per-view match or a moment, or there wasn't a question. And even like the 0 hour matches were all really good. This was a very by the numbers, high level AEW pay-per-view. It didn't try to be cute. It didn't try and like outsmart you with anything.
There were some cute things.
There were cute things, but like on the whole,
yeah,
like it felt like a very like straightforward. We're not trying to like throw a crazy angle at you. Like, most of the matches had a clean finish, a clear winner. We're moving on to the next thing. It just, we had that main event. And the main event was fantastic, but there was stuff about that post match that kind of had me scratching my head.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second. Was there anything from the New Japan perspective? Because I know going into the show, you were not super duper happy with the booking of the New Japan side, especially post G1.
Sure,
and
yeah.
They kept it light. There were I didn't watch the pre-show, so I saw even less, I'm sure, of the New Japan stuff. But what did you think? We got to see Walker make his AEW debut. I thought he was awesome. What the New Japan stuff?
So only 2 New Japan guys won, but they were the right 2 guys in a lot of ways. Yuya Uemura got a pin, and Zack Sabre Jr., their IWGP champion, got a pin. So, for context, I have a New Japan podcast, Speaking Strong Style. And so, for the last 5 weeks, I have been neck deep in talking about the G1, the ramifications of who won, who lost, and all this stuff. So, in an aspect, it was really frustrating to watch this pay-per-view be billed as a cross-promoted AEW NJPW pay-per-view and feel like there was not a whole lot of planning and synergy for a lot of things, including Takeshita, who did not have a match.
He did come out.
He did, but it felt like it was a missed opportunity. So once I divorced myself from the fact that it just wasn't going to be that kind of New Japan show, and that it was an AEW show with New Japan guest stars.
It was AEW and friends to me.
Yes. So
New Japan
Scooby-Doo episode with like the weekly guest star that was coming in for the special guest spot, and then
one CMLL person, one Stardom person.
Yeah, and then back to our regularly scheduled programming next week. And so I had a great time for the party aspect of that, and there wasn't a whole lot of too consequential stuff going on with all that. But the singles matches with the New Japan talent, the Fletcher match, the Zack Sabre Jr. match, Walker Stewart calling those matches, they were tremendous, man. I had a great time with those matches.
Yeah, Walker was awesome. There was a moment where, and we'll talk about the match a little bit down the line, Zack Sabre Jr. and Nigel McGuinness. And Walker set up Bryan Danielson so perfectly by saying, you saw the Nigel and Johnny Saint video, they're playing chess. Zack Sabre Jr. is more like a jazz musician. Talk about that, Brian. And Danielson just went off about riffing, and Zack Sabre Jr. is just in the flow. And I was like, this is what your lead announcer is for. Your lead announcer is to set up your color commentator to hit home runs. And when you had Bryan Danielson on this show, and you had Excalibur on this show, it immediately added that sense of like, okay, like we're actually going to have some real stuff going. We still had Shivani, and he drove me nuts like usual. We had a little bit of Jim Ross, and I think Jim Ross's only faux pas was calling Bryan Danielson by the first name of Dan during the show. And then Don Callis, which some people didn't like, but I like the heel version of Don Callis because I think he's a really good speaker. Brad has some news that he shared in the chat. Our guy Brad, he said Tony Khan said that all contracts from here on out have to be executed with at least 1 week's notice. No more cashing in whenever you want. Hey, set the precedent. Let's make it official.
What happened there was that Tony actually at the scrum asked for feedback and interaction from the people there at the scrum about how they felt about MJF executing the contract the way that they did. So it went a little live action with the crowd there, the things that you don't really like with what Tony Khan does there. But the end result is something that really would be makes a whole lot more sense than what we're going with now.
Yeah, create your own thing. Like, make it a precedent. Like, write your own rules. WWE has theirs, and you have yours. John LaRocca mentioned about the four-way was what he thought was not good. We'll talk about that. He thought it would be better if it was Mercedes and Windsor. Probably a better match, though. I actually liked the other two women. I thought the other two women stood out, and I'll talk about what I got out of that match when we get there.
I would have liked to see a Mercedes versus Bozilla match.
That was my takeaway from that.
Yes.
No, it wouldn't have been a great match, but just the different style, like, because part of the thing that I liked about this show, there were two matches that stood out to me as like different from the rest, and it was Kyle Fletcher and Hiromu. That was like very well paced. It was just one-on-one. And then we had the Zack Sabre Jr. and Nigel McGuinness, more grappling, more wrestling. And those stood out in good ways because they were different from some of the other car crashes that style that happened. And I don't know. I don't know what to say about Okada, but we'll get there when we get there as far as what you thought, because they're trying to put this dude over as the best big match wrestler of all time. And I'm like, best big match wrestler of all time. And he's sitting here right in the middle of this show. By the way, shout out to Fernando, Lady B. Obviously, John's here. Both Johns are here. John Quinn as well, and Brad. Thanks. Good to see you guys in the chat. Okay, so let's talk about the angle to end the show. Now, the main event was the Lights Out tag match, and it was chaos, as you would expect. I thought the camera work in this match was better than usual when it comes to these crazy matches that AEW has, and I thought that helped my viewing experience. They didn't miss much from what I could tell. They got just about everything that they wanted to get, and I thought that was a plus. And I can't imagine that this was an easy match to shoot because of everything going on. Like, we can kind of compare it to Anarchy in the arena, where sometimes they'd have to go to like a 4-box to get all the things that are going on in the match. And I just thought the camera work was excellent, zipping to the right stuff. It felt like the producer of the match and the guy in truck, they were in sync. They were simpatico. They knew what was coming. So I really enjoyed the match. My main problem with the actual match, and this is a problem with all of these matches, War Games, Hell in a Cell, is when you have all of these folks in the cage, what you lean on is the action, and what you don't get to see is like, I want to win this match. The pinfalls are set up so that you can get these kickouts, like where someone jumps into the camera. Like, the kickouts aren't really there for any other reason than to trick the fans in a sense. So you didn't see any real strategy in like, oh, if I cover this guy, I got to be on the lookout and keep this guy out of the ring. Like, the pinfalls are just there to help with the chaos. So that is the one flaw in this match to me as a fan. However, on the other side of that, it's just well done. They had the right people in the match for the action stuff, for the sequences. I could see people thinking that it was a little indulgent or overbooked or whatever. You had the Darby spot with Gabe Kidd at the end, and then
many Darby spots actually.
And one of these Darby spots was him getting up the cage in like 2 steps. He was so quick up the cage, which then kind of ruined it for me at the end when we talk about the thing we're going to talk about right now. Anyways, they hit the hidden blade,
one-winged angel
finisher. Tanahashi took about 5 years to get to the top rope.
Oh, he got the pin too. That's right.
And he hit the high fly flow for the win. So they allowed the old man to get the victory. And then they're about to go off air. They kind of pulled a WWE here, where they play the credits. It's about to go to black. And then you had the Moxley
got Gargano'd.
Moxley attacked him. And how many DDTs did he hit this dude with? It was like so many.
Yeah.
And so then you had this thing where they locked the cage. And so, this is like an old school wrestling thing, right? Some of the more famous angles in wrestling history has to do with being the cage. The cage keeps people out. You lock the door, people can't get in. The flaw in this match is that we just saw 5 minutes before Darby and Moxley getting over the cage with very little hesitation. Was not hard for them to get over the cage at all. So they climb out. Darby goes from the outside, and he's going to get back to the top of the cage so that he can jump, but then they move Moxley out of the way. It takes him like 2 steps, and he's up that thing so fast. So now when you have Ospreay locked in the middle of the cage, he's just getting his ass beat. No baby faces can get in. That's the whole flaw in this thing. And and John said Marina came from the opposite side. the idea was that the heels had kendo sticks and they were slapping the cage as if
flanking in defense. Yeah,
as if that was, this crazy.
You couldn't
thing.
get grip on the fencing enough to climb after that.
So that's the flaw in this angle. But when you do an angle like this, like the fans understand, like we've seen people climb to the top of the Hell in the Cell, and Mick Foley in the famous Hell in the Cell match said how he's like, I didn't know if I was going to be able to get up, but he still got up. Undertaker, who was 50 years old, goes up the cage. So that is the flaw. Now, the other flaw, which I think what you're going to say is you have this fantastic Will Ospreay video to kick off this match, which I thought was the best thing on the whole show. And then at the end, your hero, the hero of the entire weekend, of the entire night of the show, he gets demolished in front of that live crowd. And one of our friends in the Discord, Adams, I forgot what his quote was, something like, what a weird way to end, or something like that. And he was there live. So talk about the hero getting killed at the end of the show.
It almost felt inevitable. Like, you're watching the match and you're like, okay, exactly what's going to happen to this guy that you're going to necessitate, giving somebody the rub or whatever, or, just, and it was either going to be Gabe Kidd or Moxley, and it should have been Moxley, and it was. But he was the guy this entire pay-per-view was built around. And to basically give everyone this blow-away show, but know at the very end that you're just going to, for a lack of a better term to the home crowd, rip their heart out and absolutely just have them all go home and try and rationalize, like, well, yeah, he's really injured, so he's going to have to go away for a bit. I get why they did that. But I don't know. It felt a little too manufactured, because I'm of this mind that if they really wanted to go absolutely hard with this, Alex Windsor has to come out. Right? Like, you have to sell this as like
she was the voice in the pre-show video, by the way.
And they are together as a couple, if you're not aware of this, watching it. So if you're not going to do that, you're really not trying to sell that there's like lifting the veil and a reality to this. And if you're not going to do that, then it's almost like, why are you doing this at all, except for like shock value? You feel like an obligation to do this. Everyone knows Ospreay's hurt. Everyone knows that Ospreay hates Moxley. Like, this is the extra punch to the dick kind of thing, where it's like, you could do this, but now you're coming back in December and you just killed your hometown guy. You better have a plan, is all I'm saying with this, because right now you're down Ospreay, you're down Swerve, Omega's not around all that much. Your top babyface is Hangman. There's not a whole lot of other guys that are like, and Darby. So you just got to be very conservative with what your plan is going forward, because your ranks are thinning.
So I think one of two things about this. Mm-hmm. One, Ospreay's not that hurt. No, okay, I think he's hurt, but maybe he's not neck surgery hurt. Okay. And maybe maybe this is an actual pro wrestling angle where they leaned into the realism to sell the pay-per-view. We've seen that a lot, right? Whatever this Karrion Kross bullshit is, and to me, it's absolute bullshit. I'm not interested. It actually makes me less interested in Karrion Kross, because he's a mid-carder who we're supposed to care about in this scenario. And this has nothing to do with the man Karrion. This is all about wrestling, just the wrestling angle. Now, I have nothing against the human being who plays Karrion Kross. They tried to do it with R-Truth, which was actually real. Then they brought him back, and then Triple H tried to play up the, maybe it wasn't real, but Triple H is full of shit too. The problem with this Will Ospreay thing is we've seen a lot of like, and we have the Hurt Syndicate stuff, right? We have the the comments about how they're unwilling to lose. So there's a lot of sort of reality versus like what's real, what's fake going on in wrestling today. And both companies seem to be leaning into it a little bit. I could see this being a little bit more like that because they needed a hook to sell the pay-per-view. That is actually what I hope it is, because the flip side is Will Ospreay's out for 18 months because he needs neck surgery, and that's not great either. So my hope is that it's wrestling angle heavy, and maybe he just needs rest, and he can be out for 3 months and then he can figure out what to do. But if this is actually this dude needs surgery, that was a hell of a way to go out. I don't know if I would have done it on this show or if I would have done it on TV. I may have done it on TV instead of at the end of this show.
The injury angle?
Yeah.
I think that would have been the play. I had a train of thought here, but I just lost it after a second. But the whole idea to me was just the beginning of the match, right? Like the video, and then he comes out, and all the baby faces are giving him hugs, like Kenny Omega and Ibushi, and these guys have gone to war. Like there have been Wrestle Kingdom matches between some of these guys, and so like and to play it up so like it just had so much weight to it in the beginning that they were really trying to sell you that he was going away. Like no matter what the outcome of this match was, this dude was gonna go away. So if you wanted to do one more like victory lap on Dynamite, you could have done that. If like the compelled nature to do this here at the very end of the show, that might have been the thing that was just like one thing, like I'm trying to think of the word here. Indulgent. One thing a bit too indulgent in the entire show that you did not need to do. And I know that you want to have that memory, and we were talking about it when we were watching the pay-per-view, but if you do the whole he is able to come back and you do the 3-month program of Triple H style build, and then you bring him back, he'll come back as the biggest star in the company, and he'll come back as a conquering hero, and he could come back better than ever. To the crowd, it's just a question of whether physically he's going to come back better than ever.
I would prefer running this angle on the television show because you're just going to get more people to watch the television show.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, and maybe they will prove me wrong, but one of the things that AEW is not good about is hammering home their big angles. They may run, I'm sure they'll run a video package to start the show.
Do you think that Tony Khan should be in the middle of the ring doing like in light of this heinous act, like the Death Riders have been suspended? Or
no,
like
I don't think you need to do that because this is the same guy who's putting this match together and completely fine with having the match like this.
Sure.
So
psychopath Tony.
I would just make sure that they mention it like 3 or 4 or 5 times, and maybe that's when we get the Alex Windsor interview, right?
Yeah.
And because they don't really lean into the idea that they're a couple. Like I'm sure they've mentioned it, but it's not like they come out together. That was the first time on that video where we really saw them.
I mean, there's a wink and a nod with her nickname being Iron Will.
Right. Sure. Yeah, but it's not like even Becky and Seth, like they're not together in storyline, but they hit it harder. They themselves hit that stuff harder. So I think you can make it compelling. You could have done it on Dynamite because this is a kickoff of the 2300 arena shows, I believe. You could have kicked off this run of shows with something very important. More people watch it, and then you send the fans in London home without being sad, I guess.
I have a question for you. Maybe they didn't want Will to fly out just to fly back one more time for the injury, so they wanted to do it here. Would it have been better to end the pay-per-view and then make that like an internet angle afterwards?
Yeah, you could have done that. Or they also do this thing where after the pay-per-views are over, they will shoot stuff on the show for Dynamite.
Yes.
It's probably not as live. Like Brad basically saying the same thing. Would he make it to the next Dynamite based on it? If he's hurt, if he's really hurt, because this brother did a freaking moonsault to the floor.
He landed straight on his feet from doing a tope, and I'm just like, "You're playing with fire, brother."
so like that's where I kind of scratched my head a little bit about. He needs neck surgery like today, and then he's doing just crazy stuff. And look, he's fantastic, right? He is he's an amazing athlete. He's a compelling character. He's believable in that aspect of that he is hurt, and I think whatever he's going to do, whether he gets surgery or whether this is just a little bit of a time off, I think it's going to work well for him, his character. Now, I'm just why I'm hopeful it's not neck surgery, because that's actually a physical thing, and he is going to have to change his style if he does go through with it. But anyways, more so, if he's not having the surgery like immediately, or if this is a bit of like a let's wait and see if he needs surgery, he needs to come to Dynamite on TV to do that, because he's like the biggest star in that match. Now, to do it here, well, I kind of lean the same way as you, which is like, we got this really great match, and of course we need heat. We need heat for everything. Heat rules the world, and that's how we end the show. So, anyways, I don't want to belabor that, but it is the most important thing to come out of this show. So I wanted to lead with that.
The only thing that I would probably say is whatever MRA and MRI and other, exploratory things that they did to see what damage they were going to do, they're still going to have to do another one after this match. So it's not like, so they're right back to square one, and whatever damage there is, it's incurred now. Not it wasn't like he got out of this unscathed.
All right, let's hit some of the other highlights or the newsworthy things, then we'll go through the matches. Hangman holds on. They overbooked this thing, but I understand why. I didn't expect Hangman to just have a 18-minute match and go clean with with this clothesline, but just over the top Bryce Remsburg Hall of Fame stuff, man. I liked that they brought out Mark Briscoe for about 15 seconds just to call back to Bryce screwing him in that match on Dynamite, and he was about to screw Hangman, and then he passes out. This is Shakespearean stuff from Bryce Remsburg, and then he wakes up, and somehow MJF, as brilliant as he is, has not knocked Hangman's foot off the bottom rope. So Bryce, right as he's trying to do it, Bryce sees it, and he's like, no, he had the foot on the bottom rope. This match must continue. Like, just that's the eye-rolling stuff for me, but I get it, because it's, MJF's one of their top stars. They just don't want to beat this dude clean. I still think Hangman's got it, man. Like, the problem is that when you have a match with MJF, you want to get Hangman over. He beats this brother clean and solid and just looks like $1 million, and MJF is the dastardly heel, and everything that MJF tried to do, just Hangman just had to answer for it. And that, I think they tried to do it as good as they could, but, just the Bryce stuff had to be there. But I do wonder now, as we head to All Out, are they just going to run this match back?
I think so.
And I think that's the smartest thing you can do, is run this match back, especially going up against Cena and Lesnar.
Yeah, so I did not want them to run it back, but there really weren't a whole lot of options of someone else that you could put in that position. You could put Takeshita in that position as a guy challenging Hangman, since he just won the G1, and that would have been a good way to do it.
That would have been my choice if they weren't going against Brock and Cena.
Right. And I'm sure they have other plans for Takeshita, so that is what it is. The brilliance of watching this match with one Dave Meltzer is he watched that quasi-finish with MJF and Hangman, and he said, oh, MJF has been studying his matches. That's straight from Bobby Lee and El Santo in Mexico. It's a super famous match. And I'm just like, cool, man. How many people are going to identify that? I mean, he knew that MJF has been doing his studies and his tapes.
Dave may be sending him the matches to study for all we know.
Exactly. So I'm just sitting there. I'm like, well, that adds context to this whole thing. And so
it would have been nice for I guess you don't really want to even reference what the influence is, because the fans aren't going to really understand that context.
Like if somebody is like able to pull a Bobby Lee reference because they know it in the commentary, that's one thing, but that's a deep cut that no one is expected to do. I get running this back against a match against Cena and Lesnar. It makes all the sense in the world. The other thing that I really, really like about this is that if you remember the original run with Hangman Adam Page, his title defenses right out the gate were with Lance Archer and Adam Cole, and they weren't the top guys doing top business in those kind of matches. He didn't feel like the star of the show.
Yeah.
And now you have Hangman against MJF, which is he's the top guy.
Okay, you know what I mean? You say that. What was the main event of this show?
It was a
lights out cage match.
It was a party match, but
right. But I get what you're saying.
But it's a world title feud, is what I'm trying to convey here.
If somebody was to argue what you just said, they would point that he didn't even main event this show. And I'm not saying he should have.
No, and I believe that he'll probably main event the next show, and they'll run it back with that closing the show. My whole point is that there is a clear difference between being positioned in a world title feud against a guy like MJF than being positioned against Lance Archer right out the gate in your initial title run. That's all.
I agree. Yes. MJF may have to lose 2 times.
Oh, he should.
Could be a problem, because if we thought this match was overbooked, and I agree with Brad, by the way. Brad said it was a bit overbooked, but I enjoyed it. It worked really well and had some suspense. I don't know about this necessarily the suspense piece for me, because I just never expected MJF to win. But MJF is awesome. He's a really, really good wrestler. And Hangman is kind of the guy right now. So I was completely fine with it. And I'm looking forward to seeing what they have for the next time. But if MJF was if we needed all of the Gaga at the end for this one, what's going to happen next time? That's kind of my thing about it. But I think it's the right match for sure.
The other thing that was in the back of my mind when I was watching this pay-per-view is there were a number of singles matches that was technically the first title defense for these guys. Okada was the first title defense of the Unified title. Hangman was his first title defense on a pay-per-view. It was Zack Sabre Jr.'s first title defense of the IWGP, and it was Kyle Fletcher's first title defense. So there was the sense that each one of these guys kind of had to win their first title defense. So the element, if you kept that in the back of your head, was you kind of had to extend the drama of will they or won't they retain, knowing that in the back of your head.
Also, a couple of other things. Wardlow, of all people, is back.
Loved it.
He came out during the end of Okada and Swerve. Swerve had his knee trapped, and Wardlow came out and was throwing around referees. Who did he beat up?
I think he beat up Paul Turner and a couple of security guards.
Who is Swerve's manager?
Nana.
Prince Nana. He beat up Prince Nana.
I thought Nana came out with a machete at first, and then I realized it was a pipe. And I was like, okay, that makes way more sense.
So Wardlow joins the Don Callis family. They're up to 8 members now or something?
No, 25.
What?
They have 25 members.
25 members?
There's so many members. There's at least a dozen, 12.
You know what was interesting? So obviously Wardlow comes off of the American Gladiator show, hosted by The Miz. And I would have thought that coming out of the American Gladiators, he would have maybe been in the best shape that we've ever seen him. He didn't look, he was jacked, but he didn't look as good as we've ever seen him So I don't know what that means. I don't know if it means anything, but I thought that was interesting.
Wearing the suit, and I liked the use of him. Like him being a heavy heel that is protected from doing jobs is probably the best role for him. So
they should actually protect him from wrestling.
Yeah, I mean, he could be Callus's personal bodyguard.
Yeah, he should be the heater, and I mean, that was his original role anyway. But
Callus is more, the Bobby Davis, Bobby Heenan family. Now it's the Callus family. Like this is all the model for it. And what we got: Takeshita, Okada, Fletcher, Rocky, Lance, Trent Beretta, Hechicero. You can throw the Young Bucks in there because they're affiliated with them from time to time. So
yeah,
it's
if they were affiliated with him, they wouldn't be coming out to Bop. But there's
a lot going on. It's just they're adding and adding.
Where's Brian Cage?
He's in there, but he's one leg down.
Brian Cage, Wardlow, and Lance Archer in the same team seems a little bit.
Titles.
They seem like essentially the same three guys. Cage will wrestle a little bit more, but they seem like okay, we have three big dudes. Why do we need three? We only really need one.
Maybe the contracts are running out for some of those other guys, and they're just kind of pivoting.
By the way, the Bop thing, I love that so much because Tony Khan paid for the rights of Bop by Hanson. But I'm so sick of this Young Bucks stuff when it comes to the EVP and not EVP.
Just being jobbers.
Now they're back, but they don't they look fantastic. Like nothing has changed about their wrestling. It's not like they're depressed. They keep kicking everyone's ass. Though I guess did Matt take the pin in this one?
Yes, he did.
Yeah. So going just back to the Young Bucks for a second, we can move on. So they renamed the trigger back to the BTE trigger, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that was from, I guess, being the Elite was back. I don't know if it's back permanently with them.
No, they just did a 2-minute bit to officially rename it.
It had 23,000 views within a couple hours. So
I saw it, and I was kind of surprised that they had revived the channel just for that. I'm like, hey, good for you. And it gave them a gauge of exactly how much engagement they have right now. So
can I actually
as much as it used to be?
Can I actually give them a little bit of credit though? I don't want to. Okay, so first I want to give them demerits for the gummy bears thing in such a serious, crazy match. Like they wanted to bring out thumbtacks. They emptied the thumbtacks bag. It was gummy bears. They did 2 spots with the gummy bears, and I thought it was going to be Gummy Bear City for the rest of the match. It was not. So they were able to withhold that, but. I think Nick took a face bump into the gummy bears and sold it, and then Kenny Omega emptied some gummy bears into Matt's mouth, I think, and then he got kicked by Ibushi and spit them out, and that was it. So
yeah,
there was an I'm sure they wanted to do so many more things with the gummy bears, and they stopped themselves. So I will give them credit for that.
Their impulse control went through.
I also give them demerits for that even happening because I'm so sick of the Young Bucks thing with the EVP stuff.
So I was really hoping that this pay-per-view was going to be okay, we're back to just being members of the roster. We're going to have an entrance. It's the pay-per-view. You paid for it. We're going to do it. And they continued with it. I will admit, last night on Collision, I really did enjoy when they got called Rod and Todd as if the Flanders brothers. that one got me, but I'd also just want to kind of see it wrap up.
To me, I'm like, these dudes should be baby faces, and Tony Khan is the heel for fucking with them for so much. That's what it feels like to me.
I mean, I'm watching them and I feel bad for them. They're constantly in the jobber locker rooms. They're trying to really sell that they don't have their own locker room and they have to get dressed with the jobbers all the time. And I'm not sure everyone's kind of picked up on that, but there are little cues about the disrespect thing. And I think the idea is they disrespected everybody else for so much that they're getting what they deserve. But at some point, unless they're going to turn it around and be even more heelish, or they're going to have a redemption story, we need to move on.
Yeah. Well, maybe this is it. I don't imagine it's it because it actually does give them something to do. But
well, it's a whole pay-per-view cycle. So like this happened at All In. We're at Forbidden Door. We're going to All Out. Let's move the story forward.
Yes, I would hope so. And look, that they should be in one of these tag team feuds, but they're in this bigger storyline with the Death Riders, and if they're a part of that or whatever. So, but it doesn't feel like they are a main. It doesn't feel like they have a main spot. It feels like they're bouncing in the middle, and I'd rather just pick a side with them because, let's redo the tag team division. There's some momentum here with FTR and Brodito and Edge and Christian are back, and whatever happens with the Hurt Syndicate, we'll see what happens there. But it feels like there's a little bit momentum. Like, let's bring one of the best teams back into that division. So I would hope that they move there, but I guess we'll have to.
They're plug and play Stark right now, and I'm not 100% sure, but did the Buck lose to Brodito? So that
Yes.
Brodito got to so they're the last team that's going to get a title shot against Brodito by that logic.
Well, I mean, they just need to win a big match, right?
They absolutely do, but that should be the story, is like their redemption arc, and you can fit them in. Like the dream match really is at some point real soon, maybe Full Gear, 2 pay-per-views from now, or 3 if there's a Dynasty one in October, but it should be Copeland and Christian versus FTR versus the Young Bucks in like a dream, like 3-way tag. And how you get there is entirely up to you. But I'd just rather
do separate ones. I'd rather have Edge and Christian do the match with FTR and then do the match with the Young Bucks. I want to see all
of those things, but they have to start setting the table.
Yeah, for sure.
And they're not doing that. Like I said, they're plug and play superstars in all these bigger angles, but they're 100% have 6 viable star tag teams in the division right now, and they can hit the ground running if they choose.
So Brodito did win. This turned out to not be an elimination match at the end of the day, after it wasn't an elimination match, and then the graphics said it wasn't an elimination match, and then it turns out it was not an elimination match. Brodito wins by pinning FTR. I thought the finish that they had planned was a pretty darn good one, and then they screwed it up, and it kind of sucked at the end. But they got the Hurt Syndicate out of there thanks to Ricochet and Gates of Agony, who were dressed in New Japan track gear.
Young Lion gear.
and so no MVP on this show.
So you know what they were dressed as? They were dressed from the gear that they got from going to the World Tag League and Wrestle Kingdom last year. They used that as cover. I just realized this just now.
Okay, you know what I thought though? Gear. Okay, you know what I thought? I was like, oh, these are little guys from the New Japan Young Lions.
I spent about 30 seconds thinking, who could it possibly be that anyone would care about? And I realized there wasn't anybody.
Yeah,
there was no way that they were going to take those new guys, Yuta, Ice, and Oscar. Also, they didn't look that size, and put them in this position. And I thought maybe it could have been the Bullet Club guys from earlier, but that didn't make any sense. And then when I realized, or I think one of the Jonks realized it was Ricochet and the Gates, and I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
You know, the only one who's actually big enough on that roster to look the size of someone needed to take out Bobby Lashley is Billy Gunn. He's like the only one.
He's a large
because he's like 6'4", 6'5", and
he's only within like 10 years of Bobby Lashley too.
Yeah. So obviously no MVP. The Hurt Syndicate did not do the job on the way out. They got pushed. They got ran to the back and were not involved in the finish. I thought the chair shot onto Brody was well done, because I thought that, I was like, oh, that's a great finish. Nope, kick out. And then they went to the other thing with Brodito and their new move, which is awesome if you can pull it off, but they did not pull it off. So then it sucked. And I thought it was like, I was really bummed when they screwed up the finish, because they did so much just to get there, and then they flubbed it at the end.
There was like it started with the monkey flip, and it was a little off. And then Cash missed the pin the first time, and then they restarted the pin, and it was just like you should have just done it the first time.
Yeah. It was like I'm gonna actually
fine.
Okay, so Dave and I both said, you know what? Adding the third team to this match will actually make it a better match. I'm gonna take it back. I don't think it added to make it a better match. I think it created it wasn't different from the 4-way with everyone involved, which we'll get to, and the tag match with everyone involved. It just was everyone involved. And as we know, whenever you add a third team or a third person, it just becomes no disqualification. So you had that part.
That was a big part of it for me. It was completely unclear when the match started, even beyond the elimination. Right? Everybody was involved in the match. And then all of a sudden, one team was tagging, but everyone else was still in there.
Even
and then
the referee didn't the referee tell one of the FTR guys to get back to his corner or something like that?
I think so, but it took about 5 minutes for even the announce team to clarify what the rules of this match. And it felt like even the guys in the match didn't know what the rules.
We have too many multi-person matches. There's just so much of it, and we don't need so much of it. It's a cheat code for action. I get that. It's a cheat code for interfering with pins. I get that. But like, let's just make the match better. Why do we have to add a lot of the interference and a lot of the, the extra stuff that is not needed when you have teams like FTR? Like FTR specifically understands how to work a tag team match. And so we messy up the thing by adding all of these other things. So yeah, it was fine. I wouldn't say I was a giant fan of this match though.
I thought it could have been better, but this was not bad. It was like a perfectly serviceable match. You mentioned on the Fight Game podcast that you love the 15 minutes in the middle of that 30-minute draw.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of that I really enjoyed, because the beginning and the end again were the mess, and the stuff in the middle was the good stuff.
All right, let's get to this entire show, and we'll talk about the pre-show, because you got to see the pre-show. When I turned on my Amazon Prime feed of this show, I think I was probably about 2 hours behind you guys, and so I turn on the feed and I'm like, oh, it's Renee and maybe RJ, whatever. And I was like, oh, no. There's a whole 90 minutes of stuff that I do not want to see here. I need to figure out how to quickly get to the beginning of the pay-per-view. So I didn't see it, but you did get to see it because you were at Dave's trying to set up his Amazon Prime. All right.
Nailed it in 5 minutes, man. I felt good about that one.
All right. 8-man tag to start the show was Paragon, El Desperado, and Uemura versus Crew and Hechicero and Josh Alexander. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct. It was a very good match. All the 0-hour matches were actually very, very good, above average. It had a lot to do with the quality of the people wrestling on these matches, with all these visiting talents. Some of the main roster pay-per-view guys got moved down to the pre-show. So the right guy was highlighted in this. There was no like real drama tension, but Yuya Uemura ended up pinning, I believe, Lio Rush or Action Andretti at the very end. There wasn't like can't he? It was like, once Yuya Uemura got his hands on this guy at the end of the match, he won it pretty convincingly. And he's one of the top stars going forward in New Japan Pro Wrestling. So I was generally pretty happy with that call being made.
Trios match. Gates of Agony and Ricochet defeated Jet Speed and Michael Oku. How did Michael Oku look? Because you and I saw him in Vegas, and that dude is tiny, like way smaller than I thought he would be.
This was when I began to worry for the hometown crowd, because Michael Oku looked really, really good throughout the entire match. But it became pretty clear that he was the guy that was just going to get his ass kicked for the entirety of the match and kind of come from behind. And so he was kind of made to look lesser than the main AEW stars, even though they got a huge ovation and he got his spot. So one of the big ones was, I believe, Bishop Khan threw him over the ropes nearly head first onto the floor.
Jeez.
Like just no control to kind of like do it. And he got up and he was fine and he kept going, but it was just one of those like, dear God, man, like, dear God. After that, it was the back and forth that you get in any 0-hour match. But the finish of the match was, Michael Oku looking like he was going to have this match, won with a submission, and then Ricochet clawed the eyes, and while the Gates of Agony were able to hold back Jet Speed, they all then took turns piling on, destroying him, and then basically putting him away for the finish. So what you would expect of the guy from the hometown, it was really good, but you could have done less with making Oku look like a geek.
Super nice guy, though, when we got to hang out with him.
I think the world of him, and I think he's deserving of every opportunity he gets.
Yeah, good dude. Oh, by the way, Lady B's all about the breakfast burritos and stuff. How were the breakfast burritos?
I can't speak for them because I made them. So if we get feedback from the people watching the show, I offered Dave food. He declined. So I don't know what Dave.
Yeah, because there's a tortilla in there. That dude doesn't eat carbs.
Literally said, "Hey, I'll put scrambled eggs inside of a tortilla, and I will give it to you." And he's like, "No, thank you." And I'm like, "All right." No,
okay. Actually, he will eat carbs. He doesn't eat anything that is white flour because this is why. I don't know if this is why, but according to Big Dave, Brian Pillman is the person who told him, "Don't eat anything with white carb in it. Like you can eat brown carbs, don't eat white carbs. White carbs are really what's going to hurt you." So I think Dave will eat wheat bread, but I think that's about it. So
he's very disciplined with his diet. I have to give him credit for that.
John says the breakfast burrito is fire, by the way.
Woo-hoo!
All right. So the next match was eight woman tag with Julia Hart, Sky Blue, and Tekla and Megan Bayne against Harley Cameron, Chris Statlander, Queen Aminata, and Willow Nightingale. And then they played this off later in the show as if Queen Aminata and Tekla hadn't stopped fighting since then, like 3 hours later. And that brought out Jamie Hayter to save Queen Aminata from the bad girls. And so I guess Jamie Hayter is back. And to the detriment for some, it looks like she's still playing the flower,
Disco, 70s.
The 70s angle of gear.
The period piece, Jamie Hayter. The conclusion we came to, we were watching, was that Tony Khan got in a lot of trouble last year for bringing her back on the pre-show in the UK, and so he wasn't going to make that same mistake this time. Yeah. And so they manufactured a moment after the Zack Sabre and Nigel match, because it was already the hometown segment, and they brought her back, and it was a good way to change the subject.
So I thought I saw the results, and I thought it was kind of interesting that the babyface women lost here. What was the reason for the loss in the match?
So it was pretty equal until I believe Chris Statlander accidentally hit Willow Nightingale and knocked her out of the ring, which caused Megan Bayne to take advantage and I believe pin Queen Aminata in the melee. So it was a miscommunication between Statlander and Nightingale, which furthers their feud, which was always kind of inexplicable that those two were in a match together, but it manufactured the opportunity to move the plot forward. Like, we don't work well together. We're just bad for each other, blah, blah, blah. But that's how the babyfaces lost that match.
They're like the reverse Sasha and Bailey.
Yeah.
Charles is in the chat and wanted to know if we thought Camille would return now that Wardlow is back. I don't think those two things are necessarily linked together. I would actually be surprised if Camille was back just because she was not fantastic when she was there.
Her popularity among people with influence seemed to be very low.
Also, I mean, her opinions are her opinions, but I saw some political stuff that she had posted that maybe people would have been frustrated with at the time. But yeah, I think Wardlow's almost like at his like last chance opportunity. I don't even know if Camille will get a second chance, which is kind of the thing there.
After this weekend, I was starting to wonder if one Bailey would end up making her way over to AEW at some point, and that would probably be a pretty canny maneuver for her.
Yeah, Lady B says when you have Bozilla, you don't need Camille. Bring in Bozilla, man. We're going to talk about this Bozilla here in a second. All right, so then the main event of the pre-show or the 0 hour was the Ops beating the Bullet Club War Dogs, Clark Connors, Jill Maloney, and Robbie X. How was this one?
It was a 10-minute match. Basically, the Ops did all the Ops stuff. The War Dogs got their moments. Drew and Maloney looked good. Clark Connors got his stuff in. Robbie X did the splash off the top rope, in which Joe did the avoiding thing. And so we got all the spots in. It was a 10-minute match. Honestly, it was fine. It was the most Forbidden Door match on the card in a lot of ways because you had, a top AEW team versus a top faction in New Japan. And I had absolutely zero issues with it given who was in the match and what the outcome should be. Yeah. If you wanted to see the most Forbidden Door match of the entire night, this was it.
All right, let's get to the main card. Copeland and Christian defeated Killswitch and Kip Sabian. I thought the psychology was kind of funky in this match.
Why was Killswitch turning on his own team?
Okay, here's what I think. Because Christian is still playing a heel, Killswitch is actually the babyface on the heel side. And he is getting revenge for Christian Cage being mean to him. And thus, we had the funky spots where he was actually helping Edge beat up helping Edge beat up Sabian. So the problem, and maybe the announcers were trying to explain it. They seemed to be guessing to me rather than having an actual explanation. But they did not explain it very well. And it is weird when you have these three giant men in Edge, Christian, and Killswitch beating on this poor little small guy, Kip Sabian. So the psychology was kind of jacked to me. But again, as I said, them getting back together, the storyline was idiotic.
Absolutely.
Them showing up on Monday and them giving their reason for getting back together. That storyline was idiotic. I don't give a shit. I like those guys back together in the late years of their career. They're back together as a tag team. They're not the same tag team. They don't move the same, but they just look right together. That's where we should be right now with Copeland and Christian as they, get to the end of their wrestling careers. They are together as a team more important to AEW than they are apart. And that's the bottom line to me. So this is like a total moments thing for me. I'm into the nostalgia. I saw somebody say in the Discord, like, once they do the 5-second pose, then I'll be like, I don't want to see the 5-second pose. That was 20 years ago, right? Like this is an older team. I want to see these guys.
Cronkite and Mathos, grumpy old men, just in the division. Like, you know what I mean? Like, make them the old bastards that are gonna want to win the title one last time, and they're gonna roll through you to get there.
I will say, from a normal AEW opener standpoint, this is one of the weaker ones that they've opened a pay-per-view with. They use the star power to kick off the show over the actual match.
When that crowd started singing Copeland's theme song, and you got that almost, I want to say, like WWE energy in the UK, where it's like there was a big star and we're singing their music and we're into the show and we're at the wrestling show and it's a big night, it's a big fight night. You started with the right match. Like, I look down the rest of this card and like, I wouldn't have done any other match to open the show. Go ahead.
The finish was the old like heart attack, but instead of the clothesline, it fed into Edge hitting a spear on Kip Sabian to win. And then Christian stuck out his hand. Edge stuck out his hand. Edge tried to bring it in a little closer, and Christian was like, hey, let's start with the handshake.
Boundaries.
Yeah, we're not going full hug here. So at some point, they will get an embrace, and people will get excited.
Do you think it's embrace and then tag belts, or tag belts and then embrace?
Good question. I don't know. Both are going to be great moments. You could space them out, right?
Yeah. It just depends on like what's more important to the crowd is the final destination.
All right, Kyle Fletcher and Hiromu Takahashi. I really like I said at the top, I really like the pacing of this match. I like the pacing of Kyle Fletcher as a heel wrestler. He doesn't hurry through stuff. He takes his time. This was when this was Walker's first match.
Oh my God, he was great with Danielson.
He was great, but he could not find his way in for like the first 5 minutes. Like you saw him at the desk, especially when Callis came over, but he was not going to interrupt anybody. So I was waiting for Excalibur to like feed something, and he finally did. And Walker had about 15 seconds to get all of his stuff in to explain Hiromu being a heavyweight and all that stuff. And he got it all. He got it all in.
I got there, but brought a tear to my eye, buddy.
There was one moment where Callis tried to throw him off guard a little bit, and he said, I forgot what he said, like, get out of here, or something like that. But otherwise, I thought Walker was really good. And
he's got people trying to break him all the time in Japan on these shows that, you know, are the road to shows of all these things where he's just got ELP and Rocky and a bunch of these other guys just trying to break him. Callis ain't got nothing on him.
So what was funny about this match is they tried to explain Hiromu. They were like, if you don't know Hiromu, here's a comparable AEW wrestler to Hiromu. And they said Darby Allin. And I guess from like a Daredevil perspective, maybe. But then when you saw the speed of this version of Hiromu, 10 years ago, Hiromu was like a lightning, but he's a bigger guy. He's a slower guy. He's had injuries.
Yeah.
And then you saw how fast Darby was moving in that main event. And I was like, okay, that's really not that comparable, but I get it. If you're trying to, who's close, I get it. But I really liked this match. Never once thought Hiromu was going to win. I love the finish with Kyle hitting the kick to the back and the kick to the front, and then Hiromu trying to sneak a pin, but then losing anyways. I thought that was really well done. Very just happy watching this match, especially with the pacing. It just felt like a one-on-one wrestling match. There wasn't interference. There wasn't all these guys coming in, breaking in pins. It was just one-on-one. Let's get going. Good number 2 match on the show.
Excalibur, Bryan Danielson, and Walker were the best team calling a match in God knows how long. I just once again have to give Walker so much credit for being able to convey so much information clearly about some of these guys with a limited opportunity to do so. And he's been doing this a short amount of time, but he is just as good as the next guy. And when it comes to Takahashi,
Walker and Jim Ross, I think, were from the exact same area.
Mm-hmm.
That's so weird that 2 pro wrestling broadcasters were literally born in the same city.
They have a lot of similarities if you really dig into it. And I know a little bit more about Walker than I'm willing to share on the show here, but he's very much like a hometown guy and very loyal to the people that he cares about, and reminds me of like Jim Ross and his wife Jan. It's like there's a very genuine quality about him that when you listen to him or you are watching him, you realize that he knows what he's talking about. He's confident in what he's talking about, and he's able to tell the people who are following him all that they need to know and very little else about a match. And a lot of people get very indulgent when they're talking and trying to put themselves over. and he's just all about the business of it. And I just think that's really good.
When it comes to the Observer Awards for Announcer of the Year, I think there are two options. One option is Joe Tessitore, who is the ultimate host. He is the most professional broadcaster in wrestling today. And the other is Walker. Walker is a great MC for a match and for explaining to the audience what is behind of what is going on. And there's nobody better in calling a match to me than Walker, but Joe Tessitore's calling a completely different product in WWE. He's almost a host. He's almost like Joe Tessitore's like Ryan Seacrest of American Idol, because that's kind of his job, is to explain everything and to throw to everything and to do the right marketing piece and to, quickly able to adjust and be the pitch man. His job is just more stuff to it, whereas Walker can kind of just study the angles and study the history and call the wrestling. But they're the two best guys, I think, for Announcer of the Year. And I wouldn't even know who to put third, really.
I would put Charlton.
Yeah, I don't watch enough New Japan to even.
Fair enough. But I mean, like the rest of maybe Corey Grave, because he's done a lot of strong work with some of those independent.
Corey, yeah, that's a good one. I think Corey would be third, especially because of his AAA stuff. Like that is impressive.
Like he has done the work to really shine with that product.
I know people like Barrett. I think Barrett's solid for sure.
I don't watch enough SmackDown to really have an opinion, so I'm just going to defer on that one.
And if there was a vote for last, it's Shivani. All right.
Kyle Fletcher's looking less like Randy Orton, though, in his wrestling. And as one person noted as we were watching, might be off the cycle this month.
they got Bryan Danielson to say that Kyle Fletcher's a handsome man. And then Bryan Danielson said something to the effect of that he heard that maybe Taylor Swift was interested in Kyle Fletcher. Okay, buddy. He didn't watch this New Heights podcast to see how into each other Taylor and Travis Kelce. I didn't watch it either.
Up in social media when Taylor Swift was even uttered in regards to AEW was like that, like blip in social media. Like, wait, what's going on? Oh, it's just somebody making a comment.
That would be actually a good move for Kyle, though. I know dating and wrestling is dating and wrestling. I forget he's with somebody. I think right.
Sky Blue.
Is that okay? So they're still together.
I didn't want to dressed like the Black Queen from.
I didn't want to say that because I wasn't 100% sure because things can change quickly. But if for whatever reason he and Sky Blue were not together anymore, the move for him would be to find like somebody on like a TV show. And
I'm pretty sure both sexes would, in some way, shape, or form, celebrate if those two ended up not making babies with each other forever.
Okay, so third match, and this is the match that LaRocca said was the worst one. I get why he thinks it's the worst one. Mercedes Moné, Alex Windsor, Bozilla, and Persephone. The problem with this match, to me, as a four-way, again, I'm over these multi-person matches just for the sake of having them. A better match would have been Mercedes against either one of these three women individually. Alex Windsor, I don't think she is over enough on AEW TV to get the fans to truly care. Bozilla in person was like, oh my gosh, who is this person? Like Bozilla made herself some money this weekend by being on this show, I think, because
she'd get an offer 100%.
She looked impressive. She was tall, like she's young, and I'm going to guess she hasn't been wrestling for that long. So there were moments where I could see, she wasn't like, but again, like these four women together have never wrestled each other at the same time. But I thought she was impressive. And Persephone was fine. Like she missed on, she got her toes hooked on the middle rope on that dive and almost face planted.
She recovered.
But she got through it. And the thing that I didn't like about this match, I wouldn't even say I didn't like about it. I thought there was too much of it, which when you do a match in the beginning and you have some collaborative, let's say, spots, I think it's totally fine. Like early in the match, everyone's fresh, do the collaborative things. They just did way too many of them. I didn't need to see, two people locked in the same submission over and over and over again. I didn't need to see the feeding so that you can do a move to two people. And when you do that, it just looks overly fake. That's the stuff that I didn't like in this match. But I thought Mercedes' selling of Bozilla was really strong. She was definitely afraid of Bozilla. I thought the moves that the women did were really strong, and it's nice to see women who you haven't seen before. Like it was like when Stephanie Vaquer was on this show. Was it last year or the year before?
That year was last year. Her rise to fame has been 1 year ago.
Yeah. So to see new faces on a show like Forbidden Door, I'm all for it. We just don't have to do the four-way because then you get so many convoluted things. And when all I wanted to see literally after the first 2 minutes, I was like, okay, I just want to see Mercedes and Bozilla. Like that's the match I want to see right now.
There were a couple of moments there where I thought were both good and bad. I thought when Windsor tried to go for the double sharpshooter and then fell over and then recovered, I thought was a bad spot that they salvaged. I also thought the moment where Bozilla came in and stepped on the hands of both the women to stop
so
them.
They couldn't tap.
I thought that was a really smart moment that I hadn't seen conveyed a lot. I think Lady B in the Fight Game chat mentioned the Fight Game Discord. Email Rohibelius at Fight Game Media if you want to join that.
No, GG.
GG at Fight Game Media to join that. But she mentioned Bozilla could, and Stephanie Vaquer is a verb. Bozilla will be given Vaquer this after this showing, where the bidding war between NXT and AEW may be in full force to get her services moving forward.
Tony hopefully had a conversation with her.
I hope so.
But who knows what her contract is with? Actually, Brad says once Bozilla's contract stardom is over, Tony's going to jump on that. She wants to move to the U.S. to work. Yeah. So I don't know what.
I hope he's got a window to exclusively negotiate. Is all I got to say. So the four-way itself, this is something that I feel like Tony Khan kind of does from time to time. Is Mercedes Moné just lost a high-profile singles match, right? And so coming into this as being a 1A, 1B top star in the women's division, she probably wasn't going to lose the next match. So if you do a four-way, you still salvage 3 singles matches that you're not burning with an obvious Mercedes going to win. It does not mean that this concept or this idea or this booking mechanism is great, but I saw the logic behind it because in my mind, I never saw Moné losing this match when she's in the midst of just accumulating title after title after title. It just doesn't make any sense.
Danielson said the comment that I would have said about basically like you have this big match on Sunday, kind of risky wrestling on Saturday or whenever she won that other belt the other day.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know. Maybe we should focus a little bit more on AEW. I sort of sensed that was the meaning behind the meaning.
Just kind of like, hey, you work here, right?
Yeah, exactly. So Mercedes wins the match, and we move on. I don't what is next for her. I don't know if they have anything set up for her.
I would guess Megan Bayne, maybe. Like, are they going to start turning her babyface at some point? She's just kind of there. You can go back to Alex Windsor.
Because you could have had Hayter come out during this match, but they're very specific in where Hayter came out.
Yeah. So there aren't a whole lot of women left on the roster. Maybe you run back like Willow or Chris, like you could do the Chris Statlander thing with the Death Riders and kind of elevate her in that position and have the Death Riders giving her a hand. Because with Will Ospreay out, they don't really have a whole lot of main event angle stories going on. Like their objective, they lost, but their objective is accomplished and Swerve is gone and Hangman's got an MJF thing. So what exactly are the Death Riders going to be doing next?
So this is actually a really good comment. Bozilla needs to stay in Japan to get more experience. She will not improve or learn quickly by wrestling in America. AEW doesn't have the infrastructure.
Oh, absolutely.
Agree with that, but you also, unless you do pen to paper with her, you risk losing her to
It's the
WWE, who
Kevin Knight
absolutely
conundrum.
doesn't care about that because they have their own. That they believe that their NXT infrastructure is the best one. So
like the Kevin Knight conundrum, right? Like he signed with AEW this year. And had he stayed in New Japan, he would have had a clear opportunity to work several dates, get higher up on the card, increase his visibility, have strong singles matches. And in that point, he would have had a much better pathway to stardom in AEW because he would raise his profile to something closer to what Gabe Kidd is doing, where you want to protect him coming out the gate. But he saw the opportunity to come to AEW, and now he's in the middle of the card. He's going to have to work really, really hard to stand out and just need a bit of fortunate luck and opportunity with the rest of the roster rising and falling. But had he waited and he sees himself in Japan a little bit more, would have come in with even more opportunities at a higher level. And I think that's the same with Bozilla.
Probably enjoyed the bigger paycheck, though.
Oh, absolutely. There's a a plus and a minus to that. You get paid more now, but your ceiling capped as a result.
I mean, from the perspective of like, I would compare it to Major League Baseball, which has an entire farm system and developmental system, and 4 and 5 different levels of having your prospects go through before they reach the big leagues. Mm-hmm. Obviously, that is better because it's not only better for the player, but it's also better for the team because then they can go, okay, this person has peaked and they're only 20 years old and they haven't gotten any better. And then you can kind of, get off of them and not bring them up because you bring them up and it costs you money. But here with pro wrestling, all of the money is in the US, for the most part. So if you are betting on yourself, like I think you're suggesting, then yeah, maybe 2 years down the line, you build up, you become a star somewhere else, then you come in and you're even hotter and you're a bigger free agent. But what happens if you wrench your knee? Then that's the risk of not taking the money now and being involved in AEW musical chairs of where in the card you can possibly get to. Okay, so then Zack Sabre Jr. and Nigel McGuinness. Everything you would have thought. The finish came off a little bit flat because they went back to they had a pinning sequence that they went right back to, but Zack had outsmarted it. Mm-hmm. My favorite part of this whole match, the wrestling was solid. Nigel is Nigel. There's a nostalgia to Nigel, and there's a little bit of like, this guy never got to be great because of injuries, so he deserves to be here. I don't sense that New Japan is like the happiest with like the retired broadcaster getting the first IWGP title match, but they're just like, okay, whatever. But I thought all that stuff worked. The Johnny Saint stuff was really cool, and Zack goes out just by being the better wrestler. But again, to me, it was Walker and Danielson explaining things. Danielson explaining his history with Nigel.
The Johnny Saint video package at the very beginning.
That was really cool. And then, obviously on the entrance as well. And Danielson explaining like, yeah, Nigel, Nigel treats me poorly when he's broadcasting, but I'm not going to do that because I'm great. I'm so happy to see him wrestle, and he can. I'm actually rooting for him to win in this match. And then Walker keeping the New Japan side of things, knowing that Zack is going to win the match, has got to get Zack over as well. Zack was in that casino gauntlet. I think was that at All In? Was he in that one?
It was the one before that.
Okay, it was the one before that. So then now you have them explaining stuff, and I was really just mostly in love with the match and the announcing as well on top of the match. If we could get announcing like this on all the shows, like imagine how much better the stories and the matches would be. Bryan Danielson being on this show, like he's not going to Wally Pip Taz because Danielson doesn't want to do this full time. Like he doesn't want to just be the announcer. He wants to wrestle and he can't wrestle. That'll probably bother him more than anything. But man, it was a crazy improvement to hear his voice over Taz this weekend.
He is someone that takes very constructive feedback on his work and then immediately like reflects it, like he's a very thoughtful and introspective about what he does. And it feels like every time you see him, he just gets a little bit better at commentary because he's so invested and he wants the product to succeed and he's not there to put himself over. And I think like he's not there to make himself laugh or, really just like pop himself. He's there to pop the crowd and pop the people at home and to get them into the match as much as he loves it. And I think sometimes the difference between having a commentator whose job and they approach it from a business standpoint, as opposed to someone who goes into it absolutely passionate about everything that they're watching and being able to convey it. I feel like that's kind of what we're seeing when you have the Taz Danielson like comparison. Taz will go in there and he'll commentate and he'll give you the analysis, but it feels like he's coming in there and doing a job. When Danielson's in there, he's just like, God, I love doing this.
And he's trying to get his jokes over, which are hit and miss. I know some people enjoy them. I
they
just
were
think
great on AEW Dark. They're not great on
but they're tired, right? They're not new. It's like a stand-up comic going from town to town doing the same act from 15 years ago. So listen, I mean, Taz is a good personality. He's just not a good commentator anymore. Right. Okay, we already talked about the three-way tag. We don't have to go back there. But next match is Unified Championship, Okada and Swerve.
Swerve did a lot of hard work in this match.
Let's talk about main event, one of the greatest main event match wrestlers of all time, Kazuchika Okada.
I call him 4 Okada because he's a 4-star wrestler now.
I wanted him to cheat to win this match, by the way.
To really just like do a number on the knee illegally.
Do something underhanded like a heel instead of pin this man clean.
Yeah. I felt like one guy worked really, really hard and the other guy showed up to a contractually obligated match.
I didn't see anything wrong with Okada, by the way.
No?
I thought Okada did everything he had to do. Swerve brought the charisma. Swerve brought the by the way, Swerve is jacked. Oh my gosh, this dude just looks like a giant superstar. And some of that is the build, and we know how people get that build. So I even hate to put it over, but it's wrestling. You have to, it is the visuals, that is how the wrestling works. But man, the guy looks tremendous. He looks great. Like if he does have a knee injury and he can't really work legs, he's been working upper body, that's for sure.
One of my favorite moments of the entire show, actually, Garrett, was there were a number of wrestlers that did cosplay. Like Sky Blue did a obscure X-Men villain, but Swerve did Mr. Terrific from the latest Superman movie. And so I
didn't even put 2 and 2 together there.
Yeah, he totally did. And so I was like, oh, hey, I know how this is going to go. Dave, did you know that Swerve is cosplaying as this obscure like comic book character that was featured in the latest Superman movie? I don't know if you want to put that in your notes or everything. And the look on his face was like, yeah, I don't think that's going in there. I'm like, okay, cool. I just thought I'd mention it.
Imagine, like, let's play. Do you know anybody in the comic book industry, like who's done stuff? People. Okay, so imagine you're watching this movie with that person who is not a wrestling fan, and then you're like, "Hey, do you know that this wrestler is in this comic book movie?" Like, would you get the same like goofy response? Would they be like, "Come on, bro, who cares?"
No, because I think they're a little more lighthearted with the crossover aspect. David is pretty locked in, and I kind of view it as if it works for the crowd, that's great, but he doesn't personally have to understand it.
Yeah. No, yeah, totally. He gets that. It's not anything that he's even thinking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Again, like if Swerve, it sounds like Swerve may be going away for a little while because the knee injury is legit. And they did an angle at the end where after he lost, he then got his knee wrapped around and he got it put in between the steps and the ring post. And somehow it was stuck in there like forever. Like it was like maybe when he got put in there, like Okada just like dumped super glue on it, like, and it couldn't, like, we didn't see that part, but the leg was just stuck all the way through Wardlow coming out. And then Swerve is a sitting duck, and Wardlow would rather beat up referees than take a shot at Swerve, which I thought was kind of weird. I don't know why they did that.
Why he didn't hurt Swerve at all.
Yeah, that was weird. But again, like the way I would have had Okada win this match is not clean with his finish. I would have had him do something dastardly before then getting to his finish, taking out the knee, since that was the storyline. But something in a cheating way. Now, this is Continental Classic rules, so you can't have the interference, but that's not interference. That's just a heel wrestler being a heel wrestler. And I think we should have actually seen that at the finish. But I thought the match was totally fine for what it was. It just didn't exceed anyone's expectations, I don't think.
So let me ask you this snap question. With the result of this show of Swerve and Ospreay, who are the top 3 or 4 baby faces on the brand for AEW?
Okay, who did you say were
with Swerve and Ospreay on the shelf?
Yep.
Kenny Omega typically not being around on a full-time basis.
Not even in the build of this entire show.
In the build for this. Who do you build as top baby faces? Is it Darby Allin? Is it Mark Briscoe?
Well, it's Hangman. He's the champ.
Well, yeah, he's already there, but he's tied to the MJF feud.
Mm-hmm.
So you need other like top baby faces.
You're thinking who should get Okada for the next?
Who should you like do the programming around? Like, is it Darby? Is it Eddie Kingston coming back? Is Orange Cassidy going to be back anytime soon? Like, you have a number of top people that the fans cheer for going away for short and long periods of time.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have other people ready to go?
Yeah, maybe they turn somebody.
Yeah.
Could you turn somebody who is currently heel right now and turn them babyface?
Probably Takeshita is the only one I can think of.
And they kind of teased it.
They did. But that was like, is Takeshita going to be, is that what they're priming for? Is Takeshita and Okada down the line here at the C2? Because that's really the match to make.
I think Brad might be trolling me because he just said AR Fox.
Absolutely ridiculous.
All right. So the women's match, I was on the opposite side of Toni Storm and Mercedes on the last pay-per-view. Not that I thought the match was bad. I just did not see it as this great match that everyone else saw it as. And so I wanted to watch this Mercedes and Athena match more closely. I was like, Toni and Athena match more closely. I was like, maybe I'm missing something here. I was kind of disinterested in this match. The way that the layout was, Athena took so much of the match, so much so that the announcers, Bryan Danielson, said she's taken 70% of this match, which is a hint, by the way, that the babyface is winning.
Yeah.
I didn't like the layout. I was kind of like, okay, why are we not giving the expectation that Athena can win this match? It's the other way. It's like, oh, we know this story. We know this trope. Heel takes most of the match. Babyface is going to win. And that's what happened.
I needed something extra in this build because when we went to the announcement of All In, Athena was front and center. And there was almost a presumption that you were going to build to this big match with her because it was time. You know, she had been in Ring of Honor for 2.5 years at the point. Now it's been 3 years. I think we're getting at like a 1,000 day, like circling the moment with her title reign. And it was just one of those, she didn't get that match at all, but she got the Casino Gauntlet contract. And she was, you know, set up to face Toni at this pay-per-view, which was the follow-up. That's all well and good, but subconsciously in my mind, I always felt like she was a number 2 to a 1A, 1B of Mercedes and Toni. Mm-hmm. And so after having this big match between the two, I didn't really see Athena coming in and sneaking this title away while she still had the Ring of Honor title going into this match. So I wanted to be proven wrong. I wanted to see that they were like gonna do something brave and stuff, because Toni Storm doesn't really need the title, but it's a comfortable position to have Toni Storm with the world title. You know, it's like you don't have to take chances with that. The audience loves it. You can hold the course. And if the men's babyface side is a little weak, you can steady it up with the women's babyface side being strong. I saw all that. I just wasn't sure if there was going to be this confidence that they could go further with Athena than they were going to go based off of all the indications of her booking so far.
The finish was her getting the O-face with her neck hanging over the top rope, and Athena hit the move. So she's knocked out. She's flat out on her back. Like, looks like she's knocked out completely. She's selling the move. And then who is it that comes down and sends... Mina comes down, sends Billy packing. They're running after each other. I'm like, man, these women run fast down the thing. They're not doing the gimmicked like pro wrestling run where you run slow and no, they're running fast. So then she goes from being dead to getting the chicken wing, like so fast. And I was like, okay, that was a little bit too quick for me there. I wanted to see a little bit more. And that was to me, that was a flaw in the finish. Like Athena hits this fantastic move and then just gets suckered in this submission and the match was over. I like Athena. I want to see Athena more. I think she needs to be in the main picture a lot more. I don't know. I don't know why she's not. I don't know what stops her from being.
100%.
Tony's a giant star. The fans love her. I wouldn't have mind seeing the title switch just because I think she kind of needs another hill to climb, kind of like when she lost to Mariah.
Mm-hmm.
There's a little bit of wonder for me that there's going to be some boredom set in with Toni Storm. But if we base it on Dynamite and the live crowds that go to those shows, she's still over like crazy. So this may very well be a me thing. And I've been a Toni Storm fan for a very long time, but I would like to see something different with her at this point.
I got one last question, a curveball for you before we wrap this up because we pretty much everything. Do you think the roster has enough talent on the women's side to do a women's Continental Classic now?
Name the 8 women.
8 or 12? Because
was it 12? I mean, you don't. I guess you don't. You can do 12, but you don't have to do 12.
So you could do all of the 3 Toxic Attraction or whatever. Thekla, Sky Blue, and Julia Hart.
Okay, if you're calling it a Continental Classic, I'm keeping Sky Blue out of this tournament.
Okay, so you got 2 of those: Toni Storm, Athena, Mercedes, Alex Windsor, Jamie Hayter. I mean, there are others that I'm thinking of, but Megan Bain, you know, like you.
So you could definitely get to 8. I think you could get to 8, and that there will be some lesser than workers, but I think you can do it. You might even be able to get to 12. You might
be able to make November, December. You could do programming where you do alternate men's and women's Continental Classic, and I don't know if they do that. But I want to give credit that I think there's enough caliber of women's wrestling talent on AEW now, where it was like maybe one day.
We didn't even mention Willow and Stat.
That's what I'm saying. It's like there are we're getting there. We are at a position where if they said that they were doing a Continental Classic for the women this year, I think they could pull it off.
Fernando's also asking, where's the AEW tag team division, which Tony Khan in the past said he's kind of waiting on some people to come back. I don't know if he was waiting for Jamie or not, but who else he might be waiting on, but they could kind of get that going as well at some point soon.
Yeah,
all right. So
that's all I got, man.
We talked about the men's championship. Hangman Page beat MJF. We talked about the lights out steel cage match and the aftermath of that with Will Ospreay. Okay, I have one more question, and this is also for those in the chat. Actually, you know what? Let's do a couple questions here.
Sure.
Best match, worst match, and in the chat, give me your best match, worst match as well.
I'm going to go with the best match being Adam Page versus MJF.
Okay.
I thought that was a really solid main event match that leaned into not being too nuts, given that the steps really allowed it to like go out of control. They did one count out spot and then a couple of near disqualification spots. But other than that, it was.
What about that pile driver on the broken table?
That I wish he would have hit him on the other side of the broken table. Like that hurt. That looked. I felt like my head hurt after that one. Worst match. I'm gonna go with the opener.
I think you're right about the opener. I mean, I can see the four-way that John mentioned as well. I could see why he thought that. I could see why people thought the tag match was a mess. But I'm gonna go with the opener as well for worst match, though.
It wasn't supposed to be the match.
Like, it wasn't even a bad match. It was just
it was a match that they filled in at the last minute. But if it had been Nick Wayne and Kip Sabian, I think that they had that match in mind for a while, and that they did this match instead. It was a little chaotic, and it ended up being the worst good match on the card. That's the best way I can put it.
Lady B says best Hangman MJF. Brad said,
I liked Lady B.
Brad said best MJF Hangman and favorite Zack Sabre Jr. and
That's
Nigel.
A good distinction. The best and the one that you like the best can be two different things.
Fernando liked Okada and Swerve the best.
There's always one.
Fernando also said four-way was the worst. I will go with but you know what? As for an action, crazy, insane match, I thought the cage match delivered.
Yeah. One of those two matches, I wouldn't argue you either way on it, but it just kind of like you're gonna like one for one reason and you're like gonna like the other for the other reason. You know, they used enough discretion in the cage match where it's like, okay, no one died and people could have died.
When Dave asked you guys, what was the consensus for best match?
I don't actually think he asked us because a lot of us just ran out the door as soon as like Will Ospreay died because we had trauma from the last show. I think Scotty and Mary and David Rubio stuck around, but the rest of us were just out the door. We're going. Time to go.
All right, let's do the game that I love to play.
Sure.
Guess Dave Meltzer's star ratings. This is not about us. This is not our personal star rating.
Okay.
This is Dave's personal star rating for the last two matches, and we'll start with the men's title. Actually, you know what? We'll go last three matches. Let's start with Toni Storm and Athena.
4.25 for Toni Storm and Athena.
I'm going to go 4.
I'm going to go 4.75 for the world title match.
I'm with you on that one.
And I think I'm going to go with 4.75 for the light touch.
Okay, so that's kind of the feel that I was wondering, because I think you would know if he was going to go full 5 for the cage match, because I would have, just watching it, I would have thought that he was going full 5.
Like, you can, but okay, to pull back the curtain, you know when he popped for something.
Yeah.
You know, like when he loses, like Michael Oku, like landing on his head, he had a visceral reaction to that. They built up the spots with Darby Allin getting ragdolled into the cage, and you know there were a lot of great spots. I wouldn't be shocked if it went 5, but just the vibe I got from it was just like it was really, really good, but I wasn't like exceptional. It could be 5. But my feeling is 4.75.
All right. I think that is all that I had. And I hope we kick off these Dynamites in Philadelphia. I do hope if this is the Will Ospreay angle they're running with, let's tell everybody and their mother and 5 times. Like, let's really push this thing, because if they're not going to push it, then they did this giant angle.
Us miss him and make us be happy when he comes back.
Yeah. All righty. That is it from here. Thanks to everybody in the chat. We had some newbies in here too that I hadn't seen before. So thanks to all of you. And I guess let me think about this. So you will be back Thursday in your normal time slot with Speaking of Strong
talking
Style.
about all the New Japan reasons why this show does not matter, but having a great time nonetheless. Maybe we'll get Zack Sabre Jr. announced for the title match for Blue Justice or the Road to Destruction shows in September. The world is our oyster in New Japan. It's all chaos. Everybody's upset. It's going to be fun. Come join us, 5:30 p.m. Eastern, and we can talk about the dumpster fire that is New Japan Pro Wrestling in August 2025.
Yeah, you guys are going to have to do some creative topics for some upcoming shows.
All I'm saying is I wanted to give people the hook to want to watch our show. And I think telling them, let's talk about the potential dumpster fire things going on.
Well, look,
it's really going to get people more than rah, everything is.
Well, here's the good thing about New Japan Pro Wrestling is there's such a tremendous history to that. If you guys wanted to do themed shows about certain things, kind of like what we did a couple months back when we redid the Omega Okada, we did the watch back on it. Mm-hmm. Like stuff like that is fun because there's so much great history to New Japan, even if like people are kind of out of the current product. Like there's stuff in the current product when you are at the stage that they are, where you're like, okay, what could they do to turn the corner? What could they do to who should the person be? Like, what do you do with Takeshita? All of that stuff is great, and they're great talking points. But you could also do other stuff to study from that, just because it's out there. So,
speaking of strong style, Stephen Conway is a fantastic historian, and like he'll just tell me 10 minutes before the show, like, oh, hey, I spent 15 minutes. I got 15-minute piece on Hiroshi Tanahashi's 2 years career retrospective that I'm going to map out into 10 different segments. I'm like, cool, man. I'm just going to sit on this part of the show, and you just let me know when you're ready to go.
All right. Thanks to everybody for hanging out with us. We will be back for post-game stuff. WWE has Clash in Paris next weekend. I don't know that I can do that, but I may have to tap Keela and Scott to see what they're doing. So that may be the play there. And then AEW and WWE there's going to be a face-off, man, in less than a month. WWE's first ESPN show, AEW's next pay-per-view.
Is that on a Saturday or a Sunday?
Saturday, I'm guessing, because of football season.
Okay.
That's my guess. Whatever the 20th is, I'm sure I can.
What an awful weekend for sports.
I can quickly look. It's Saturday or the 20th is a Saturday.
Ugh, it's gonna be a long weekend.
So we will we'll just make sure that we have our stuff, and maybe we have Keela and Scott do that WrestlePalooza.
Huh?
Yeah, and then we'll just go head to head, just like AEW and WWE goes head to head. So all right. That is it from here. So we will see you at some point in the very near future. Lots of live shows. We had Power Bombshells earlier this morning. They did their pre-show very early. And yeah, Jeremy and Steven on Thursday, Paul and Jeff Hawkins on Wednesday evening after Dynamite.
And you're not back tomorrow with Paul?
We'll see. Paul.
Okay.
If Paul's not watching Forbidden Door,
to be fair, there's not a whole lot of talking points besides Will Ospreay getting injured out of the show. So,
yeah, we have
there's not a whole lot of talking points in wrestling in general.
Lady B sent us a good topic, so if we do record, I do like Lady B's topic. But if we do, then we'll have a show. It's just I don't want if he's trying to stay spoiler free on Forbidden Door because he's watching it at some point later in the week. We can't do we can't do a hot take show because he's got to know what happened on Forbidden Door. So
a hot take requires being informed of what takes are hot.
Right. All right. So, all right. Thanks, Jeremy. Thank you to everybody. I'm Double G. We'll see you when we see you. Peace out.